Howdy, AB here at Duomo Gardens. Okay, we're going to transplant. I hope you're ready for this, and it's going to be a good one. We got a variety of things we're going to try to do and kind of take you through some tricky things, but not so tricky depending on the type of transplant we're going to do. We're going to do something basic, we're going to do something a lot more complicated, just to give you a better idea of what you need to get into. Now, before you transplant, you want to ask yourself a couple of questions. What's the purpose of the transplant? Am I trying to have it go into another pot? Am I trying to have it go into the ground? Do I want to have this plant get real big? Is this plant going to be small? That really determines where it's going to go. For example, I got a little plant here. It's a volunteer, to tell you the truth. I don't even know what it is, but I know I like it because it looks good. I like the leaf structure, and I believe that I've seen this plant before, but I couldn't tell you what it is. But I'm gonna take a stab at it. I put it in a little container just because I saw it growing the other day. I put it in here, but now it's starting to outgrow this space. I'm going to put it into just a slightly bigger pot. Not into the ground because I'm not sure what it is. So I'm just going to just have it as an ornamental. Easy transplant, not a big container, into a smaller container. So what I want to take a look at is to make sure that the plant is actually healthy before the transplant. I don't want to have to deal with a plant that's already kind of sickly, because in the transplanting process, you can damage it. There's going to be a little bit of micro damage to the root system. So one of the important things to know is, what's my soil? What's the container? What's the ecology of this? What's the environment looking like? And before I transplant, I look at my soil. I want to make sure that it's kind of binding to itself, right? I don't want a loose thing. I want to make sure that if I push this plant out of the container, it's not going to fall apart, because that's going to destroy the root system, and it's probably going to damage the plant to either kill it and or damage it where it won't really flourish. And so I want to take a look at the health of it. Now I'm going to do a little simple technique right here if you guys want to get in close. It's a plastic pot. If I push the center of the pot up, I'll see the whole dirt ball kind of come up off of it, and I do see it. See that? See how it kind of breathes? I'm able to push the dirt ball out of the pot and it doesn't fall apart. So chances are that I can probably take this out of the pot and it won't fall apart, which is my goal, all right? Which is the goal anytime you want to transplant. So I'll go ahead and grab some dirt. I'll put it in its spot. It's new home, per se. I'll kind of create a little hole in here. And this is the important part, to make sure that you actually set it where it's going to live. And go, okay, am I happy with that? Am I happy with the level of how high the dirt level is compared to the rim of the pot? Yeah, my dirt level will be about right there, which is good. So then what I'll do is I'll just basically put some dirt up and around the space, so that when I set the plant in there, it's not even going to know that it got transplanted. It's not even going to disrupt anything. And one of the key things is match your layer, your dirt layer, and then I'll kind of just pat it down so it's a little bit harder on the outside, right? Because remember, you want dirt to be holding itself so it doesn't just fall into the center where this plant's going to go. I'll kind of just move the plant back and forth and kind of just create a little wall there. And then I know if I pull it out, there's my little habitat, right? So here's the big move right here, right? I'll take any loose and pendant that might have fallen in there, and there's my original root ball right there. And I already know it's loose. It's not going to stick to the wall of the pot. Remember, that's important. Sometimes this won't be as easy, right? And if it's not moving up and down, you're going to have to either tap on it or get a thin little blade and kind of just break that stick between the pot and the dirt ball so that you can get it out. And this is the big commitment part. I'm just going to flip it, and hopefully the whole root ball came out, which it did. This is a good move. This gives me a time to look at the health of the plant. Nice root structure, not a lot of roots accumulating on the outside, which means waited too long to transplant. This looks great. Little air pockets in there, a little bit of moisture, not too much, and I know that I can probably turn it and it'll maintain its space. Very little damage. I waited just enough. I haven't watered this in about 2 days, just to let it dry out enough, because if it's really, really wet, it can also kind of fall apart. And then I'll kind of just plop it into space, right? Very minimal damage to it. I'll kind of just push it in, and bam, we're done. You can just sprinkle a little bit. That's a successful transplant. Not much damage. Shake off any loose dirt that might have fallen on it when I flipped it back. Other than that, I'll just grab a little bit of water. I won't need that much water. And there's some nice water that I made too. I always have a nice little bit of water for it. And I'll just kind of just water a little bit and we're good to go. Right? I'll kind of let it get used to its new little habitat. And then I'll come back and water it once a little bit of this kind of soaked in. And I basically want that outer part of my pot, that used to be in the pot, the outer part of my root ball, or my dirt ball, to kind of mix in. Bam, that's a done deal. Okay? Simple one. Okay? Another one that's a little trickier is this one. 2 different plants, very uniquely different. I kind of just saw them growing. I kind of let them do his thing. I originally had the dragon fruit in there. I saw the Malabar just volunteer. I'm like, wow, I really like Malabar. I'm just going to see what they do together. But they don't fit in that little pot. They're going to outgrow it. I know I need to take it to a different growing space. I don't want to commit to putting it in the ground, so I'm just going to put it in a little bit bigger pot and just see how they do. And if they thrive, maybe I transplant it out of that and put it in the ground if I find the right spot for it. This is a unique experiment in a sense. I don't know how this is going to go. I've never done this before, but that's part of learning how to transplant. Do not be fearful of it. Try it and get it going. If you mess up, it's okay. You can start all over again. Dragon fruit's a little sticky, so you do got to be careful. And then we got a viney thing here, so I'm going to kind of just have them be one for the second here for our little experiment here. Again, move the bottom of it. Oh, we got a good dirt ball. If you guys want to come in closer, remember, if I push the center bottom of the pot and I'm able to see the whole dirt ball move and kind of slide out of the pot, chances are it's going to be okay. But it can still have a disastrous outcome. This one's obviously harder to deal with, so you could put maybe a glove on. I'm going to take the risk here and see if I can do it without it. And again, my dirt layer is pretty low, so there is going to be a little bit of a risk here. But I'm just going to see how it comes out, right? Pushing it. Not bad, right? Got a pretty good porous area in there. If you notice, there's some air in there. I probably got critters in there creating the little air pockets, which is what I want to see. And there isn't too much root, so they're actually doing a good job sharing the space. Be careful here still. I already measured out to where I knew that that was going to be my dirt line right there. Now keep in mind that this dragon fruit kind of has a lot of top heaviness there. And then I'll kind of just maybe grab a little bit more soil and kind of just fill it in so that I match it, right? And actually that worked out pretty good. One of the things that I did that worked out really well is just waiting for the right moisture. Right? Remember, if it's too wet, it'll fall apart, especially when you got something so lumpy and the weight is so off right here. There's so much weight on the right side. But that actually went pretty good, so I'm excited about that. Now that can grow in there for another couple of months and see how it does. This is the tricky one. How am I going to transplant this big moringa? Long container, skinny. Obviously, you can't just pull this out of here, right? Very different technique than what I've been doing there, because I can't just turn this whole entire tree. And it's going to go in that big wooden box that I went over there. Come on over. I did my prep work already. Built the box, deep box, because that's what moringas like. They have a deep root ball. And then I actually put the dirt in there, put the moringa container in there, and kind of saw where I needed to go, how deep I needed to go, and create my little walls in there so it has a nice, easy entry. And again, the less disruption, the better. So what I did is, I'm going to cut this container apart so that I don't mess with that ecology that's in there, all that environment that's in there. I kind of put some of these leaves up on top just to keep it a little moist so I wouldn't have to water it as much. But now I can take some of those loose pieces out for now. Alright, take a look at my biology in here. Looks pretty good. Right? So what I did is, I cut the bottom, the blade, and be careful not to cut the roots. I went ahead and just cut the whole bottom. I kind of turned it and cut the very, very bottom of it. So and then I can just kind of pick it up over there. I'm also going to make a big cut right here, vertical cut. And again, make sure that you take this off so that you're not damaging the root. I tend to just pull this off and then I keep cutting down. I'll even take a little peek at it here. Okay. Roots aren't too crazy in there, right? There's nothing there for me to cut. Because you remember, the main thing is your root system. You don't want to damage your root system. In this case, cut the root system in half. But also when you transplant, you don't want to have so much dirt fall off because some of the root will go with certain particles of the dirt, and all of a sudden you're ripping root systems apart, and that's not what this plant wants. So in this case, if I take a look, here's the life we have. Look at the little critters in there, right? Pretty good soil. Got a little bit of clay in there, which is banding it together. This actually looks like a pretty good transplant that we're going to have. And the people that actually cut this from the original tree did a good job too. So what I'll do is, this is a little bit of a risk. I'm going to leave the bottom half down there and see if, yeah, it's not sticking, so we're doing a good job, right? Boom. It's a good move. Here, if I would have had an accident, some of that stuff might have just fallen straight out of the bottom here, right? Okay, you work slow. I'm going to test out my space again. Decide how you want the tree to look. In this case, I want it angling towards me so it's not up against the fence. And then it'll kind of just slide into its spot, right? Very minimal damage again, and that's what you want when you're transplanting, is you do not want to disrupt that environment. And just like if someone came and just picked up your house and just shook it across and then just threw it across the street, you wouldn't be happy. So same thing here. Now, this is where you got to be really careful and know that I'm going to lift this while I'm turning the pot, if you notice. And you remember, when I lift this pot out of the dirt, I got to deal with this branch. So I want my cut, and that's why I made the cut where it's at, just close to where that trunk is. So when I'm turning it, I'm actually going to be able to turn it and lift it without having the tree, the moringa tree, disrupted too much. Come on a little bit closer and you can kind of see what's happening here. Now, one of the things that I noticed is, remember the dirt level of the pot in relation to the dirt level of the new container, right? This is your opportunity to decide if you want it to be higher or lower. In this case, it could go up a little higher if I wanted to. So I'll grab the bottom where the container still is, and I can still lift up the entire tree. And I'll go ahead and lift it a little bit and go, okay, let me replace it. I'll throw a little bit of dirt. See this little bit of dirt in there? Now when I lift the plant, that dirt will go to the bottom so I can actually elevate it a little bit more. Okay, now I got the dirt layer here, which is kind of where I want it to be. Okay, so now my next move is to put more dirt and fill it in. And I want to take advantage of the most that I can in regards to the space in the new container. And I wouldn't want to have the dirt layer of my new moringa tree down here and not utilize all this space that I can have growing in. So this is where I'll kind of dump more of my dirt. And now I just brought the dirt level up kind of a little bit. And if I want it up higher, but I like it right about there, right? I'll go ahead and remove the rest of my pot with little to no disruption of its space. And I'll go ahead and grab this dirt. I'll kind of just match the height of where I want it to be. And there you have it. I'll kind of just pat it down a little bit. This is also an opportunity to kind of square it off. In this case, I'm going to try to pat it down to where I want to be. And that's my transplant. That's no easy thing to do. But you just saw a technique that allows you to actually not damage, especially something so long and skinny. Obviously, the wider it is, You don't want to get too wide, but know the dimensions that you can deal and handle. Like the very first one, it was easy for me to just flop it over, take the actual container off, and then put that in its space. So obviously the bigger your units get, the bigger your plants and transplanting get, it's harder. So make sure that you don't try to transplant something that's too big, i.e. this moringa here is going to be a little bit of a challenge. This moringa here is already in a good sized pot, but it's still not too big. I can handle this. I'm actually going to be waiting for this to dry out so it doesn't have as much moisture in it, and then we're going to transplant that into a container twice as big as that. But bigger containers than that, wouldn't really recommend a good transplant. Okay, so I hope you guys learned something today. We're here at Normal Gardens in beautiful San Diego. My name is AB, and I hope I see you guys again soon. Go ahead and like our channel. Go ahead and subscribe to it. And if you guys have any other questions, please reach out to us. We want to stay connected with you and grow moss love.